panic, and a couple other speakers. Dr. Valentine was there. Rich held the event with Sonetta. That was the last time I did an event in Harlem, New York. But anyway, I noticed that a lot of people didn't know their blood types, right? So I was shocked because I'm thinking to myself, like, everyone in my family knew their blood type, and it was a big deal because we were well aware. And many of my beginning out of getting out of college was genetics. So, I studied heredity and genetics. My primary focus at the time was Alzheimer's and dementia, and Parkinson's. So, I started off in that field. That's why you hear me talk about it. And I'm proficient enough. I'm not because I didn't hold into the field well into, my more seasoned years now, but I held a lot of information that wasn't really relative back then. I don't really think I knew later on how relative me having this type of background would be in genetics, So it was important that I found out that the majority of people that I was speaking to online hadn't any clue of their blood lineage and their blood types. And that's concerning. Why is it concerning? Because a lot of the prescriptions, a lot of your Western medical practices, whenever you go and you engage with any medical facility or doctors or prescription, you are basically being you're initiating yourself into a chemicalized contract with these demons, okay? And a lot of the medication, a lot of the prescriptions, a lot of Western medicine weaponizes it towards certain people that they deem to be lesser, or people, and it's not that they think they're lesser, they actually think they're stronger because they wouldn't be weaponizing medication and medical practices against them. They actually think they're stronger, so they're trying to weaken that bloodline. And it's important for you all to know. And I always talk to you that as much as we talk about complexions and, lighter and darker ancestors, you must understand and understand that I'm an O positive. So I use myself as an example. And I have C stars on here that are lunar, lighter skin, my lighter skin cousins, kind of like how you have a cat, and a cat can have polka dot babies, striped babies, white and black babies. We come from the same lineage. Like if you trace all of us O positives, you will see we have common ancestors, okay? And we have common sensitivities, and we have common challenges, okay? So it's important for you to know that, like in Mexico, I share a lot of lineage with our sea stars because I come from the Carib. And many of you know I talk about me coming from the Caribs and also the Taino. And the Taino is just from my father's side. My mother's side, we're all Carib, okay? Carib tribe. Many of the non-tribal people don't know about the Carib. But in the Caribbean, we are all in South America, Central America, and then the Caribbean. Our ancestors are all in there. So that's why we generally tend to look alike. We have similar backgrounds. Can you guys not hear me? Am I talking too low? Should I take this out, or are you okay? Can I take this out, or is it okay? Let me know if you can hear me. Yeah, it's okay? Okay. Just let me know if it gets low, because I normally don't use this. Okay. So, like I talk about, it's important for you to know these things, like, and it's really sad and challenging that a lot of times when we do research or clinical research, a lot of our research doesn't come out to the public because it is privatized. Like if we're contracted by a facility or a person, because remember, a lot of research is done through grants. Like we get grant programs. Many of you know who work in the healthcare field independently, So like you can have someone who contracts you to do research on maybe certain kind of lipids or bacteria or forms of remember, I worked more with the brain. So, and I talk about how it was hard to see the rats being experimented on and the scientists being really, really not empathetic or sympathetic towards these animals in the labs. It was hard. And Fleur Brun is all about the animals. If that's anything you know about me, I have such a hypersensitivity to how they feel. And people will be like, they're rats. Well, why would you think that they don't feel pain? Why would you feel like a rat doesn't feel any pain? It doesn't. Rats are really smart, and they actually remember you, and they're actually loving. They don't have a long lifespan. They have 5 years lifespan, and they actually create bonds, and they have their own tribal base. Like, why would you think that because they're animals that they would be? That's why we live with sociopaths, because they think it's okay to experiment, hurt, harm things just because it's not them. You know, it's really just quite, it's really quite awful. Um, but anyway, I don't want to kind of get on that because it makes me sad. But anyway, so I'm contracted to see different types of work on different. It depends on the trial. So it could be for 6 months, it could be for 6 years, it could be for. You said Abid Muhammad. You said they're soulless. How would you know that? How do you know they're soulless? That's what they say about brown people. You know that, right? They say brown people are soulless. Do I seem soulless to you? Do I seem like my mother and father was soulless and they birthed me as a soulless beings? Because that's why a lot of the colonizers were able to destroy, rape, kill, and pillage all of our tribes. So just like you can say an animal doesn't have a soul, what makes you think that? How far does that go to? You know what I mean? How far do we go with the soullessness? And doesn't matter that someone doesn't have a soul, they still feel pain. Animals feel pain. They feel sadness. When their babies die, they cry. So why would you think that shouldn't matter? Because we eat them, like we consume them, or we just don't care and they're pestilence? I mean, everything has a purpose. Anyway, I don't want to go too deep on that because we're talking about bloodlines. But just be mindful. Just think a little deeper about that. Like, we're supposed to be more advanced, right? And we are supposed to be a more evolved version of other beings like animals and so on. And part of that evolvement and that consciousness is supposed to be expanded. We're supposed to have a level of empathy and sympathy for others and animals, insects, and everything. When does that, where does it begin and where does it end? Okay? That's all. Just think about it. Everyone's consciousness is different, but just think about it. I'm not telling you to make friends with rats, but I worked in a laboratory and I saw these beautiful little beings being tortured and hurt, and at the expense of benefiting us. And maybe that's why we have a whole bunch of diseases now, because karmically we're paying for mistreating and, trying to uphold our life at the expense of other lives. Like, you just have to think about that. Anyway, you're talking to the right one. So you already know, Muhammad, I'm very animal friendly, and that's something I'm very sensitive about. But let's get into the bloodlines. So we have many different bloodlines. And when you're interfacing in the medical field, whether you're going to the hospital, whether you go to a doctor, whether you're seeing your GYN, you're seeing your gynecologist, your going to your primary doctor, you're engaging with beings that are taking the information that they've learned in their medical on their medical journey, in their education, and you're trusting you with your life, with your biosphere. And in and of itself, you have to realize that most of the research that's done and most of the biological research that's utilized in making certain prescriptions is solely, and I could say maybe it's extended a little further, but especially when I was younger, it was solely done on lunar males, not even females. Sometimes females when it has to do GYN specific, but mostly lunar males. And you have to think alchemically, brown people or people that are indigenous like myself, we aren't able to engage with chemicals the same way that someone who's, first of all, who's a male would have the interface chemically with anything that we're using. And certainly, many of you don't realize melanin, which is what I have on the surface of my skin and my hair and my eyes, it has a chemical reaction to certain medications, and certain alchemically it isn't cohesive with a lot of the medications, the Western medications. And yes, plants too, Muhammad. Plants, I'm not saying we shouldn't eat, but I'm just saying to have a level of compassion, Muhammad. I understand you're saying like Plants are sentient as well. They feel pain. They they can turn to the sun. They react to touch and song and music. So everything is sentient. It's just having a level of awareness and compassion and empathy, and to engage with something like Muhammad. I'm assuming by your name you're from Islam, right? And you pray, and even when we engage with halal, right? Halal meat, and also kosher, the Jewish do the kosher. There's a level of clearing that needs to happen before we engage with meat, right? In the Islamic faith, you don't eat meat that's foul or been killed heinously, where the blood and the pain is existing in that flesh. So there is a ritual that's done with the meat within the Islamic faith, and also with the Judaic faith if you're kosher or engaging in halal, and it clears the blood and the emotions and the frequency that is within that animal's blood or the meat, right? So I'm just saying, like, we can say that everything has emotions and feelings, but it's just a level of just having an awareness that exists. Oh, you are more than Muslim? You are a spiritualist first? I am a soul. Okay, I can accept that. I can accept that. And I acknowledge that. Okay, so when we're engaging with medications, so, I have friends like big up to An, I have M, I have some of my Asian family, and when they go to doctors, they go to Asian doctors. My Jewish family, like my Judaic family, like in Brooklyn or wherever they live, they go to Jewish doctors. My lunar family, because they live in the United States, if they're American or even in Europe, most of them go to European doctors that look like them. And I know for a fact that my lunar girlfriends, that if they go a doctor, all their doctors are mostly look like them and come from similar backgrounds. Why is it that brown people in the United States, whether they're indigenous or not, are going to doctors that are actually the opposite of them? Why are they giving their blood, their information, their genetic information, or engaging with doctors that sometimes have really strong biases, but don't have the medical information directly connected to what is best and what causes more issues for them? I don't understand that. And I realize that, as I travel the world, I traveled the world, right? I haven't done really Africa yet, so it's kind of limited because Africa is most of the world, right? But as I travel the world, I realize that the majority of people that are brown, that engage in a Western medicine, they usually have lesser lifespans. And brown people who go to doctors or areas where there's more proficiency in their genetics, they tend to live longer. So when you look at the statistics and they say that brown people have lower lifespans, but they have stronger DNA, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because we should be going to doctors that are us. And remember, us could be very different things because blood lineage matters. Like, I've talked about the fact that I feel, this is my opinion, I feel like the whole Western society is weaponized against O positives. They try to kill us off. And how do I know this? Because working in genetics and knowing certain foods and certain types of water, even certain chemicals that we put in certain medication is absolutely a detriment and harmful to people, not only of just darker skin, but are harmful to O positives. Even during the cucarachas, when the cucarachas came out and everyone was saying, and they brought in false news saying, oh, it's the A's that are dying from cucarachas. Oh my God, they're the ones who are most affected. That was a lie. That was a bait and switch, because during cucarachas, the number one person affected, and that's how I know it was weaponized towards O positives, were O positives. O positives were dying in droves. And they have the highest amount of regenerativeness, but they have a certain blood quality that congeals, so the blood gets thicker. Like if there's any sort of inflammation with O positive, their blood thickens. And because they weren't really concerned or really trying to protect themselves, because they felt like they weren't the number one target with cucarachas, a lot of them unfortunately transitioned even before the shots. And it's really quite sad. So I'm here as a representation of O positive, and I will share information about the bloodlines that I feel like right now there's bloodline wars. And I've also talked about the fact that when a woman is pregnant and she's an O negative and she gives birth, she has a baby in her tummy that's positive Rus. She will kill that baby in her womb. And she has to take a shot. Usually, now there are always exceptions to the rules, but generally, that baby won't survive in an O negative's womb because her blood will kill the baby. Now, what's interesting about that is that they tell you that O negative is the universal blood type that everybody can take. So, if that was true, why, if it's a universal blood type that you can give to every blood type, including positive, why then when a negative Rus is carrying a positive Rus, it kills it? So now you have to think that the blood banks that are carrying the majority, O negative, and all these O positives, B positives, A positives are getting blood sometimes after surgery if they need it. They're taking in negative blood that isn't meant for them, that is actually going to hurt them long term. That's what I'm talking about. It's a bloodline war, y'all. And why is it that we can't ever request anymore? Back in the days, and I know this for a fact, it doesn't happen anymore. Back in the days, there used to be an allotment, like if you were in a hospital and let's say your sister's sick, right? And you both share the same blood type. If she needed blood, let's say she had surgery, she lost a lot of blood, maybe she's hemorrhaging. There used to be a time that you would be allowed to give your blood, go down to the laboratory, they do a quick test just to make sure it was clean, and they would be able to pull your blood on site and then give your sister the blood immediately. How come they're not doing that anymore? Jesus is king. Okay, I'm gonna have to remove you. You're suffering from some sort of psychosis, and I really have to put you out of here. Okay, you're not being appropriate. I don't want to have to do it, but you know, you coming in here talking about Jesus is so inappropriate. It's like you're under some sort of mind control, and you can't even hold a conversation, even if you believe that. Like we're having a conversation about blood types. Why would Jesus even come into this? Do you understand? Do you see the mind control, y'all? And we don't even know if that being is real. It's probably an NPC. It could be an NPC bot that they send in here to cause a distraction because they know that gaslights me. They know what gaslights you. So they come into the feed and they're like, oh, you know, Fleur is probably going to react to this. Yeah, motherfreaker, I will. Okay, so we talk about bloodlines, and I want to tell you that I blocked them, Charlotte. Thank you. I just want to talk about the fact that we have a bloodline war. And I'm talking to my positive Ruses right now. Now, negative Ruses, do not get gaslit because this is not to negate you. But you do know, negative Rus, especially O negatives, that the majority of your leaders, they aren't my leader. The leader on your planet, artificial Earth, are all O negative. The majority of your presidential leaders, your congressional leaders are all negative Rus, and the majority are O negative. So please don't get gaslit. We're not talking about regular O negatives that are living as normal people. They're not getting the perks, but also know that O negative, you are connected to the hive, because O negatives, they have a hive. All negative Ruses, but mostly O negatives, they are connected to the hive. So you have access to all the information that all the O negatives have. I'm sure they have a lock away perimeter that they're trying to keep most of the other, you know, regular O negatives that are just regular people out, but you have access to that. So I don't want to, just know that me talking about my blood type and the weaponizing against us, this is just something I have to speak about, because a lot of O negatives, a lot of O positives don't realize that they're being attacked. Okay? So let's get into blood types. And we'll talk about A's and B's and all the other blood types as well. My butt hurts. Sorry, Paul. Maybe I do need a BBL. I'm joking, y'all. I'm joking. I have this like this. I'm trying to do this. Yeah, your GoPro. I don't really use stuff. You know, I'm like ghetto. I'm like ghetto fabulous. This girl was like, you're not really ghetto. Okay. Neither are you. Okay? That's a concept. Yeah, that's a term. All right. So how can you O negative escape from the hive? We'll kind of talk about that too. You really have to do something different because they can access all your information easier. That's why when I do private things like that, I don't really want O negatives in the group because they're hives. The others, the dark Kabbalists, they can access all your thoughts and your database easier. It's wherever you come from. I don't know what planet you come from. I don't think all O negatives no, that's a lie. Your biosphere comes from somewhere else. I don't know where it does. I don't want to tell you the origin because I would be lying to you. I don't know the origin of where you guys come from. And the dark and light O negatives. Now, if you ever talk to an O negative that's a brown person, they're super duper duper smart. It's really frightening how smart they are. And when I say frightening, they're very, very smart. I don't care if they're conscious in the way that we're conscious or not. If you ever talk, and I noticed this notably with the brown, not to say the lunars with O negative aren't smart. I'm talking about the brown ones. It makes me think that the brown O negatives are the source of the others. So it makes me think that the actual blueprint comes from the brown ones because of how smart they are. And again, I can't tell you where they're from origin-wise. I don't know what they're not from here. None of us O's generally are from here. A's are the oldest, so they've been here longer in this biosphere. But O's were not from here, but I don't know where the O negatives are from. But when you talk to a brown negative, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Talk to a brown negative and talk to a lunar O negative. You're going to see what I'm talking about. They have access to data. They're really smart. Like, you know that they're getting their information from somewhere else. And they're sourcing from all the other negatives. That's why I said they're really smart. And it's just an ability that comes with them. I don't think it's negative or positive. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying that's what they have access to. So I just note that. Okay. So let's talk about, hold on. Now you can always fact check me, y'all. Okay. You can always fact check me. Always, because remember, I don't need you to cheerlead me. You can always definitely fact check me and look this up yourself, okay? So it's important for you to know that I'm mentally ill, according to YouTube standards, okay? And hold on. And you know, it's important for you to do your own research as well. I just share things that I know from my own point of view, and I always respect your opinions because I don't know everything, okay? I learn things every day, okay? Blood types matter, okay? So let's go down the line of the blood types and the species, because again, in itself, we have a war going on, and they're attacking O positives openly. Everything is being weaponized towards the darker skin O positives, but my lunar O positives, you're getting it because you part of us. You my cousin, you my kin, O positive lunar. So my light skin O positives, you in the same neck of the woods as us, okay? So you might as well say you're a brownie, okay? You one of us, okay? You just a lighter skin version, okay? Your versions aren't going to be maybe as strong